Going, you guys? How's it going? Luis, mándame un email, por favor. I will call you tomorrow. Te hablo mañana. Give me 1 second here. Please, just checking on something. Make sure the translator's not on. Welcome to another Q&A, you guys. Welcome to another Q&A. Definitely do appreciate you guys being here. Last week, unfortunately, we had one of our big seminars out there in San Diego, so my time got, split up quite a bit. But we are back. We're gonna try and finish our chapter 6 portion. So as always, you guys, make sure to take out your book. Should obviously say blue collar licensing here. Make sure to take this out. We're going to focus on a few questions that we have on chapter 6. That's where we're going to be at. But if you guys have any questions right now, I know sometimes, we get busy. We kind of lose track of the course. Go ahead and call this number here. We are here until 7, you guys. So you're like, hey, you know what, Luis? I have questions about my other book. I have questions about my corporation. I have questions about, starting the course. Anything like that, you guys, go ahead and call that number there, 951-742-8181. I know how crazy things can get. People get busy. Totally understand. I get busy as well. So if you do feel a little lost, you're like, hey, you know what? I need to kind of move forward with this process. I need to submit my application. I need to get the work experience form, anything like that. Go ahead and call that number, 951-742-8181. We are here until 7 o'clock today. We're here until 7 o'clock today. So like I said, it's easy to, get tripped up in the process because, life gets busy. You're busy at work. You're busy with your family, things like that. You're trying to study on the side. And then, next thing you know, 4, 5, 6 weeks have passed and you're kind of stuck in the same place. So if that is the case, go ahead and call that number there, 951-742-8181. That number again is 951-742-8181. And we're going to go ahead and get started, you guys. So let's go ahead and open up our law books. We're going to be on chapter 6. And we're going to focus on page 10. So chapter 6, we're going to focus on page 10 where it says bonds. Okay, my book's in Spanish, so it says fianzas. But in your book, it should say bonds. And we're going to cover some of these bonds right now. So one of the biggest things, the biggest trip-ups, right, where a lot of contractors get confused is they don't separate the bonds, okay? Like, we've talked about a lot of bonds in this course already. In chapter 1, we talk about the license bond, also known as the contractor's bond. In chapter 3, we talk about the payment bond. And now in chapter 6, you're seeing additional bonds. So the thing is, you really, really have to separate them because all of them are different. And just in case you do get questions, you're for sure going to get a question, for example, about the contractor's bond, at least one. So if you're unable to separate that from the bonds that we see in chapter 3 and chapter 6, those are slam dunk questions. Those are questions that you should easily get, right. And sometimes if you fell with a 63%, 64%, that's literally failing by 1 or 2 questions. And that's normally when someone gets frustrated, right? Like, man, I was so close. I thought I understood it. I had it, but it's just not being able to separate the general information. And that's what we have to be careful with, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the bonds on chapter 6. So we're on chapter 6, page 10. Chapter 6, page 10. That's where we're going to be at. So let's go ahead and clear up the first bond that we go over. The first bond that we go over in chapter 1 is the contractor's bond, okay? This bond is needed to activate the license. So we're going to separate all the bonds right now. This bond is needed to activate the contractor's license. And it must cover you $25,000. Must cover you up to, let's just say $25,000 because I don't say up to because it's must cover you $25,000 no matter what. Okay? Now, this bond Contractor's bond, it's also known as the license bond, right? You need it. You absolutely need it to activate your license, right? And the reason why you want to make sure you remember that is because when we kind of go back, some contractors pass their exams. They're like, well, why do I have to get the bond? I never heard of it. We covered in chapter 1. We cover it. We're on chapter 6, page 10. So the most important, this bond is from chapter 1. But we're focusing on chapter 6, page 10 because it's talking about the bonds. So I'm going to separate all the bonds for you right now. So let's focus chapter 6, page 10. Even though this bond is from chapter 1, I'm going to separate all the bonds for you guys so you guys know the differences between all of them, okay? Now, so in the contractor's bond, this is the bond that you're going to purchase. You're going to purchase this bond after you pass your exams. So once you guys pass your exams, you're going to have to buy this bond. This bond is generally not super expensive. You can normally find this bond anywhere from $250 all the way up to $450 once a year, okay? This is not an insurance, these are bonds, okay? So I know a lot of people try to understand it by saying, oh, they're different types of insurances, but in reality, they're bonds, and bonds are done for specific purposes. This specific purpose needed to activate the license. It protects employees, subcontractors, and your clients if you commit some sort of fraud, or you don't, or you're liable for something and you don't want to fix it. That is in general what a contractor's bond is for. Now, if we go to page 10, you're going to see the bid bond, okay? If we're on chapter 6, page 10. Chapter 6, page 10, where it says bonds number 1, you're going to see the bid bond. So one of the things that we have to kind of keep in mind is this bond, the contractor's bond, this bond right here, is for everyone. Everyone has to purchase this bond right here. Everyone. There's no way around it. But the bid bond depends on the project. You're not going to see bid bonds in your average everyday project. You're probably never going to see it in your standard residential projects. If you're doing just residential, like home improvement type work, you're working not with business owners, not on the commercial side, you're just working with the everyday property owner, you're never going to see this bond. It is not really that common on the residential side, okay? It's not really that common on the residential side. Where is it more common? It's a lot more common in public works and a lot more common in your bigger commercial projects. That is where you're going to see it, in your bigger commercial projects, okay? Now, what is the point of this bid bond? The point of this bid bond is if you submit the bid, okay, if you submit a bid for the project, the party accepts your bid. You are performing the project at the bid that you submitted. You are saying, I am ready. I have all the resources. By me submitting this bid, I can perform the project at this price. Meaning, if they accept your bid, if that other party, the commercial party, whatever party it is, accepts your bid, and keep in mind, bid means what? Price. They accept your price, you are doing that job and performing that job at the bid that you submitted, at the price that you submitted. You checked it for errors. You made sure like, hey, you know what? I have the materials to go, or I have suppliers, I have the subs, I have the equipment, I have my employees, the payroll. I can sustain this project for 3 to 6 months, no problem. If they accept your bid, you are locked in. You can't go and try to back out of it. So the reason why they ask for a bid bond is if they accept your bid bond, right? If they accept your bid, okay, and then you try to, take a step back, like, you know what, I'm not ready. This is not what I don't want to continue forward. Now they can go after your bond, right? Because think about it. These projects that require a bid bond, they're normally $1 million projects, right? And on $1 million projects, there's a lot of time that goes into preparation. There's a lot of time that goes into reviewing plans, checking with the city, getting permits approved, getting permits pulled, talking to engineers. So before you even start really constructing, there's already a huge process that's going on in the background. And if you're submitting bids and canceling them last minute and you're not really ready for them, they don't want to waste their time. So if someone's requiring you, to submit a bid bond, they're not wasting time. If they accept your bid, they are ready to go. Okay, they are ready to go. Now, what you see is the contract bond. Now, the contract bond is a combination of two bonds. It's the payment plus the performance bond. So number 2, where you see on chapter 6, page 10, it's a combination of two bonds. Okay, it's a combination of two bonds. All right, let's see. Yeah, so number 2, where it says contract bond, is a combination of two bonds. It's the payment bond, which we discussed in chapter 3, and the performance bond that's at the bottom of this page, page 10. So what is the point of this bond? Since we are combining two bonds here, okay, what does the payment bond do? We discussed that in chapter 3. It guarantees payment for your labor and materials. But remember, you have to know what that means. What does it mean, guaranteeing payment for labor and materials? You are guaranteeing payment for your subcontractors and your suppliers. That is what the payment bond is. Remember, back in chapter 3 when we were covering it, we said if the party is requesting a payment bond from you guys, they want you to guarantee payment for your subcontractors if you're going to have subs, and your suppliers if you're going to go through a supplier. That is the reason for the payment bond. Now, what is the performance bond? The performance bond, which is number 4, okay, on chapter 6, page 10, the performance bond, chapter 6, page 10, is you guys guaranteeing that you're going to perform the project according to its terms and conditions. Meaning, you're going to abide by the start date, the completion date. You're going to be able to do and perform the project without any errors. You're not going to be getting delayed in the project multiple times. You're not chaotic. You're a contractor that is responsible and that can sustain the project even when unsuspected things occur. Because that's the difference with a company that has been going on for a while. They have multiple resources. So just in case shit hits the fan, they're prepared. And that is why they request performance bonds. They want to make sure that you're going to perform the project to its terms and conditions. Be able to start on time, complete it on time. Even if the worst case scenario things happen, you have solutions for them. Now, of course, there's some things that are outside of your control. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about weather delays, okay? We're talking about things that can be in your control, but due to poor preparation, they weren't in your control. So performance bond, they want to make sure that you're completing the project on time. Remember, if we're talking about big commercial projects, those are normally what? Like big retail stores, shopping centers. A lot of these big companies that hire you guys, they want to make sure that they can open the doors of their business on time. They're putting tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands into marketing. And if you're getting delayed, that means they're getting delayed. And if they're getting delayed, they're losing that money, which is what they want to avoid. Which is why they request a performance bond, to make sure that you guys can actually perform the project the way it should. Okay, the way it should. Let's see here. One question, if I get service from an independent contractor more than once, would I have to provide him a W-9 form? So you would have to provide the W-9 form when you're gonna pay this person at least $600 or more. If you know you're gonna be doing constant business with them, I would have them sign a W-9 form either way, okay? Either way. So if you are gonna be doing business with this person, have them sign a W-9 form. How do I study the law book? I feel like there are too many questions to memorize. How do I study effectively for the law book? So the thing is, you're not supposed to be remembering questions and answers. Remembering questions and answers is not an effective strategy to pass the exam. The reason why is because you have to know why the answer is the answer. The state does this thing where it switches words around, meaning, like, for example, these little things where they do like, they do submit, for example, or they do not submit. You know, the state has a lot of these type of questions, meaning they're switching the answers around. So if you're trying to memorize the questions, you're not going to be able to pass it because you have to understand why the answer is the answer. The best strategy to pass your exams is to read the book. The practice questions are an additional tool, but they're not the entire course. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with the law book, the best thing I can do is tell you, get the classes. This is just a Q&A, but all my students have access to my platform where we literally break down chapter by chapter. I'm not reading you the book. I explain you what the book is. I'm explaining you what you're reading. And if you do that with time over the course of a few weeks, you're going to be able to understand the information a lot better. But yeah, memorizing questions and answers is definitely not a good strategy and is definitely not recommended. Let's see here. Yeah, definitely just read like some of the other students are telling you, just read. If you already seen the class a few times, that's perfect. Definitely just, like you said, put the time in and read the chapter. You're going to be able to understand a lot more. Definitely a lot more. And remember, the course is the entire thing, right? Your book, your questions, your classes. It's a little bit of everything, okay? It's a little bit of everything. But by far, yeah, definitely, reading is really important. Okay, so now that's chapter 6, page 10. That is covering the bonds. And I do want to hone in on that last paragraph, okay? The last paragraph does tell you guys that new contractors, okay, let's just say you're barely starting off, you barely opened your business, you have less than a year with your business. New contractors will sometimes have difficulties approving for these bonds due to little or no work history yet. So remember, I told you guys, except for this one, not including that top one, the bid bond, the contract bond, the performance bond, they're project-based, okay? They're project-based, meaning, I'm gonna give you guys an example of this. Let's go ahead and put, it's the bid bond, payment bond, and performance bond. These bonds are project-based, meaning if the project is asking you for them and you want to get the contract, then you have to get them. Now, sometimes they only require a bid bond. Sometimes they only require a performance bond. Sometimes, or most of the time, depending on what you do, residential or commercial, they might not require any of them. That is why they're project-based. And they normally cost about 1 to 2% of what they require you to cover. So for example, if they are requesting a performance bond, well then yeah, they're asking you to cover the value of the contract. So if the contract is, for example, $100,000, then it's 1% of that $100,000, right? That's what it's gonna cost you. So again, if you have little to no work history, you might not be trustworthy enough yet to qualify for these bonds. They definitely want to see you have some time with your company. They definitely want to see you be able to, basically have some sort of reputation just in case they do provide these bonds. You're not going to kind of screw them over or anything like that. So that's why they do require some sort of work history, some sort of time in order for you guys to approve for these bonds. Now, we did cover the bid in this chapter, so we do cover it. So now I do want to just jump really fast before we start covering the bid. I do want to jump really fast to page 20. Chapter 6, page 20. That's where we're going to be at. Chapter 6, page 20. I just want to talk about the retentions very quickly. The retentions. On chapter 6, page 20. So number one, we have to discuss what is a retention, right? What is a retention? Give me 1 second, just pulling this up here. All right, perfect. Now, when we're talking about a retention, not all projects require it, but it used to be, right? Depending on some personalized commercial projects, it used to be 5 to 10%. Commercial could be different. But now even on residential and public, you're looking at a max 5%, okay? Max 5% on your retention, meaning they can only retain a maximum of 5% of the contract price. Now, what are they waiting for to provide you this last 5%? What are they waiting for? Well, number one, they're waiting for the client approval, okay? The client to accept the job, and for the project to pass inspection if it needs to require inspection. So they wouldn't give you the last 5% until the inspection has been approved. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So this is it used to be 5 to 10%. Now we're putting 5% max, okay? 5% max. Let's see here, give me a second. Do I need a license for commercial and residential cleaning? For commercial, you do. That license, though, is through the DIR. It's more like a certificate. For residential, you don't, however. You don't need a license for residential cleaning. You just have to have your business registered, a business license, and normally all they require, if you don't have employees, is general liability insurance. If you do have employees, then it is workers' comp as well. So remember, you guys, what are they waiting for? They're waiting for the project to pass inspection. In some cases, especially on the commercial side, they're waiting for the lien period to expire. You want to keep this in mind. Be careful and make sure you read the contracts, please. A lot of big companies, they pay net 30, net 60, or net 90. Okay? Yes, net 90 is a thing, and that normally has to do with the lien periods. If you guys are signing, and the net, these net right here, is mostly commercial, right? Mostly commercial. Public works as well, but it's mostly commercial. If you sign a contract with them, number one, you have to read and understand what you are signing, okay? If you provide a contract to them, it's different because a lot of those terms and conditions and clauses are meant for you guys, right? They're meant to protect you. But a lot of these big commercial companies, they provide you the contract to sign, and a lot of those clauses are meant to protect them, not necessarily you guys, which is why I always recommend to add amendments or addendums to those contracts that kind of further protect you guys even more. But you have to know what you're looking for, right? Now, what is net 30, 60, or 90? It means that you will not be paid until 30 days after the payment was technically due. So they would have up to 30 days to pay you. And if you sign a contract that's on net 60, they're going to have up to 60 days to pay you. And unfortunately, this happened to one of my contractors that they got, really excited, really emotional. Luis had closed a big project. It was like 2.5 million or something like that, something crazy. Didn't really read the contract that well because they're just so emotional. They're like, hey, you know what? Everything's going to be good. I'm going to be able to pay a lot of bills. I'm excited. I'm excited to start. This is the biggest thing that I've ever closed, right? And the project was on a net 90, okay, net 90. So even after the payment was due, they had up to 90 days after to clear that payment, to submit that payment. And, he was fighting with them. Like, hey, you know what? I can't sustain the project like this. I need my payment earlier. But they were just so adamant that they signed the contract based on net 90 that they didn't want to issue on payment. And unfortunately, it's not necessarily his fault, but it kind of is. I told him, you got to be careful with what you're reading, what you're signing. Provide, if they have a contract, make sure you're doing your own amendments, your own addendums to further protect you as well. Let's not get too overly emotional as well on these projects. We really got to make sure that we understand what we're signing, right? Luckily, he was able to pull the project off. So, it ended up being a good learning lesson for him. But yeah, if they're on the net 30s, 60s, or 90s, you got to be careful. You got to make sure you understand when you're actually going to be paid, okay? When you're actually going to be paid. This is what I would say as well, you guys, before, I close off this Q&A. If you guys have questions, I get a lot of questions throughout my email, a lot of them, which is good. Write down your questions for me, okay? Don't wait until, today to obviously the live chat that we have here on YouTube is great. Always put your questions. But what I'm saying is, while you're studying, if there's something that does pop up, write it down. Write it down, email it over to me. I'm gonna give you guys my email here, and then we'll talk about it during the Q&A. So I had a lot of people that did reach out to me over the bonds, just kind of not really understanding. Sorry. Luis at Blue Collar Licensing. Not really kind of understanding the differences between the bonds. So we got to make sure that we separate those. And it's all separation, you guys. It's all separation. Being able to, hey, this is chapter 1. What are we learning on chapter 1? Okay, what did we cover on chapter 3? What bond did we cover on chapter 3? What bonds do we cover on chapter 6, right? So once you guys are able to do that, things are going to make a lot more sense, especially when you go to the state, especially when you're taking the state exam, okay? Let's see, in chapter 2, how does the CSLB determine that you raise your price over 10%? That's a really good question, and it's not necessarily that they determine it. It's like in those disaster zones, in those type of disaster zones, it's very rare when it does happen, but it's normally an average of what someone normally would charge, and it's normally like, how do I say, the price is really egregious. I can tell you, like if it's something that the standard company would probably charge $50,000 for, and you're submitting a bid of $300,000 with no, rare materials or high-end luxury materials, it has to be really obvious, like blatantly obvious. And that's when they normally submit that charge. A lot of those charges don't really stick because it is hard to kind of determine the price gouging on that kind of effort. But they do, what you guys have to kind of realize too is the CSLB is made of some contractors. So they take bids that those contractors would have submitted, like they would go, they would investigate the project, they would give a low end, a midpoint, and a high point, even an exaggerated high point. So if you're still over that exaggerated high point, then that's normally when they try to stick that charge on you. Most good lawyers can kind of get that charge waived because it is your, prices can change. Not everybody has the same prices. So It's a very hard charge to stick. The only way it does really stick is if it's number one, it's blatantly obvious, it's egregious, super overly charged, and if that person doesn't hire a lawyer, that to me that charge can normally be taken off pretty easily, then that's when they kind of just settle for a small fine or something like that. Okay. But all right, guys, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here on this Q&A. Remember, you guys, that is my email. Write down your questions. Write down your questions for me. We'll cover them on this Q&A. Okay, we'll cover them on this Q&A, and then we'll go ahead and cover that next Wednesday. I also have some students that are like, hey, Luis, can you just answer me it right now? I'm in the middle of studying. I'd rather prefer an answer now than in the Q&A. Just let me know. I always answer it anyway, and then be like, okay, we'll cover it as well when we're going over a certain chapter, right? And again, guys, for those of you guys that are asking questions that are not partaking in our YouTube channel, go ahead and call this number here. They're going to be able to give you the answers that you're looking for. The number is 951-742-8181. Don't wait. Get your answers, the answers that you're looking for. We're right here live on our YouTube channel answering the students' questions. Go ahead and call that number, 951-742-8181. If you guys have questions about the course, about the materials, how you guys can sign up, anything like that, that is the best number to call. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Spanish now. I appreciate you guys. Amigos, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Vamos a repasar unas partes del capítulo 6 y los vamos a enfocar principalmente en la sección de las fianzas. Número 1, siempre quieren sacar tu libro de leyes, ¿ok? Siempre quieren sacar su libro de leyes. La última semana tuvimos un seminario en San Diego y la preparación era un poco pesada, por eso no estábamos aquí. Pero esta semana pues estamos de regreso y vamos a repasar ciertas partes del capítulo 6. Muchas preguntas que recibí aquí a mi correo electrónico eran a base de las fianzas. Y lo que sí estoy viendo en esas preguntas es que hay confusión entre las fianzas. Lo mismo como yo les digo, amigos. Yo les digo, tienen que separar los contratistas principales, porque ellos tienen sus propios documentos, sus propios contratos, a los subcontratistas. Porque recuerdan, si tú eres contratista principal o subcontratista, los documentos, los contratos, los procesos son diferentes. ¿Ok? Son diferentes. Y lo mismo aquí. ¿Ok? No todas las fianzas son lo mismo, aunque a veces a lo mejor no los enfocamos en realmente leer el libro, a lo mejor los estamos enfocando en diferentes cosas o en tratar de grabar preguntas y respuestas. Pensamos que todas las fianzas son lo mismo, pero no son. En este libro repasamos 5 o 6 diferentes fianzas que son importantes. En el capítulo 1 hablamos de la fianza del contratista. Lo que vamos a enfocarnos ahorita es tratar de separar las fianzas por ustedes, ¿ok? Y recuerdan, las fianzas no son seguros, ¿ok? Las fianzas no son seguros. Las fianzas son algo diferente. En el capítulo 1 repasamos la fianza de la licencia, ¿ok? Y recuerdan, amigos, que la fianza de la licencia también tiene otro nombre. Tiene fianza de la licencia, que es uno, y luego también tiene fianza de contratista. ¿Ok? Una cosa es fianza de la licencia, eso es el nombre principal. El otro nombre es fianza del contratista. ¿Ok? Ahora, esta fianza, ¿qué es el punto de esta fianza? ¿Por qué lo tenemos que tener? Pues primero, se ocupa para activar la licencia. Se ocupa para activar la licencia de contratista. Ninguna otra fianza es para activar la licencia. Solamente esta, ¿ok? Solamente esta se requiere para activar la licencia de contratista. te tiene que cubrir hasta $25,000. ¿Ok? No es un seguro, ¿ok? No es, oh, cometí un error, cometí un daño en la propiedad, tengo $25,000 que puedo usar. No, así no funciona. Esto se usa cuando tú cometes como un tipo de fraude, un tipo de daño en la propiedad y no lo quieres arreglar. Si tú quieres robar a tus clientes, robar a subcontratistas o contratistas con licencia, ellos tienen este balance que pueden reclamar. Por eso a veces no entiendo cuando algunos dicen, pues hay muchos contratistas con licencia, según, que cometen mucho fraude o que no hacen trabajo bien. Pues todos, y si ellos son obviamente también, y si vas a reclamarle a un contratista con licencia, tienes que ser empleado en la nómina, tienes que ser un cliente, o tú mismo también tienes que ser contratista con licencia. No puedes hacer no puedes ser subcontratista sin licencia. Eso no existe, ¿verdad? Pero sí, todos los contratistas con licencia tienen un balance, un safety net de $25,000. Si este contratista roba a sus clientes, roba a sus empleados que están en la nómina o roba a otros contratistas con licencia, hay un balance de $25,000 que pueden reclamar. Si lo encuentran que realmente son culpables, le van a suspender la licencia. Y luego la compañía de la fianza se tiene que encargar, ¿verdad? No vas a pagar $25,000 para esta fianza. Es un pago de $250 a $400 una vez al año. ¿Ok? Una vez al año. Ahora, algunos sí pueden aprobar por más tiempo, 2 años, 3 años, depende de tu crédito. Pero esto es el precio que 95% de las personas reciben. ¿Ok? Pero esto es la fianza de la licencia. Ahora, hay que llegar al capítulo 6, la página 10, donde dice fianzas. Ahí vamos a estar. Capítulo 6, página 10. Ahí vamos a estar. ¿Ok? Capítulo 6, página 10, donde dice las fianzas. Permítame un momentito. Saludos, saludos. Aquí el amigo que pasó su examen de landscaping. Saludos, saludos. Felicidades, felicidades. Y vamos a repasar la primera fianza que van a ver, que es la fianza de la oferta. ¿Ok? Si van al capítulo 6, la página 10, aquí estamos en el número 1, donde dice fianza de la oferta. ¿Ok? Ya podemos separar esta fianza, ya las vamos a separar. Ahora vamos a hablar de algo diferente. Esta es la fianza de la oferta. Ahora, en lo residencial, esta fianza no es común. No es común. Esta fianza regularmente lo tienen que obtener en contratos comerciales grandes, regularmente de millones, o trabajos públicos, también de millones. Son para proyectos grandes, ¿ok? ¿Por qué te piden la fianza de la oferta? Porque si yo te digo, pues tienes una oportunidad de un proyecto de millones, ¿verdad? Antes que ustedes van a construir, estamos hablando de meses o hasta años de pura preparación, ¿ok? Si tú metes una oferta y la oferta requiere una fianza, cuando tú metes ese precio, tú le estás diciendo a la parte que te está pidiendo la fianza, ¿ok? A la parte que te pide la fianza, tú le estás diciendo, yo estoy preparado con recursos, con empleados, con subcontratistas, para hacer este proyecto. Yo estoy preparado en el momento que tú aceptas mi fianza, mi oferta, perdón, para comenzar. Yo estoy preparado para comenzar, ¿ok? So, si te aceptan, si la parte, el cliente, la propiedad comercial, por ejemplo, si ellos te aceptan la oferta, ya no te puedes echar para atrás. Si tú dices, no, la verdad, los subcontratistas me cayeron mal, salimos mal, o no tengo los materiales, no tengo esto y esto y esto, van a reclamar contra la fianza. ¿Por qué? Porque estamos hablando de pérdida de tiempo, de meses, a lo mejor años, trabajando contigo. Por eso digo, amigos, estos proyectos son de millones porque es más que nada están peleando tiempo perdido o contratistas que no son responsables. ¿Ok? Ahora, la próxima fianza en la página 10 todavía te dice la fianza del contrato. Una vez más, una diferente fianza. Fianza de contrato. Ahora, la fianza de contrato son dos fianzas en una. La fianza del contrato es dos fianzas en una. ¿Qué es? Es la fianza del pago y la fianza que se conoce como el performance bond o cumplimiento. Ok. So, ¿qué te hace o qué es el número 3? La fianza del contrato. Dos fianzas en uno, repasamos esta primero. Esta fianza, la fianza del pago, ¿en qué capítulo lo repasamos? ¿En qué capítulo repasamos la fianza de pago? Esto lo Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing. Testing, testing. One sec. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Okay, I think we're good. I think we're back. Creo que ya. Ya, okay. Creo que ya lo. Perfecto, perdón, no sé, a veces estas cosas pasan, no sé lo que pasó con el audio, pero ya creo que ya estamos de regreso. Okay. Ahora, hay que terminar con la fianza, pues obviamente ya nos vamos a quedar más tiempo por lo que pasó con el audio, pero hay que hablar terminando con lo que era la fianza de cumplimiento. O más recuerda, no sé si escucharon esa parte, pero lo voy a comenzar de nuevo. Para terminar con las últimas dos fianzas que están en la página 10, ahí vamos a comenzar. Las últimas dos páginas en la página 10, ¿ok? Perfect. La fianza del pago, que es el número 3. La fianza del pago, que era, yo siempre les digo que tenemos que asegurar que usamos los términos que usa el Estado y este libro. Cuando la fianza de pago lo repasamos en el capítulo 3, ¿qué te dijo en el capítulo 3? Garantiza el pago para la mano de obra. Pero tú dices, ok, pues ¿qué mano de obra? ¿Verdad? Garantiza el pago para los subcontratistas y también garantiza el pago para los materiales. Pero ¿cuáles materiales? Si yo compro los materiales, ¿cómo es posible que esta fianza cubre los materiales? No, la fianza del pago le cubre la mano de obra, no a tus empleados, pero a los subcontratistas. También cubre los materiales, pero materiales de suppliers, ¿ok? Pero de suppliers, ¿ok? So, eso es algo que sí tenemos que saber, ¿ok? Permítame un momentito. Ok, ahora ya terminamos con la fianza del pago. Ahora hay que hablar de la fianza de cumplimiento. La fianza de cumplimiento es el número 4. ¿Okay? El número 4 en la página 10. ¿Qué es la fianza de cumplimiento? La fianza de cumplimiento es que ustedes van a hacer el proyecto, van a terminar el proyecto a base de los términos y condiciones de ese contrato. ¿Qué significa? La fecha de comenzar, ahí van a estar ese mismo día. La fecha de terminación, el trabajo ya va a estar totalmente terminado. Ahora, la fianza de cumplimiento regularmente te lo piden compañías grandes, compañías comerciales, y estos proyectos son en los millones de dólares. Ellos quieren asegurar que si te contratan, ustedes van a terminar ese proyecto por los términos y condiciones. Si tú te estás atrasando en el proyecto por cosas que realmente están en tu control, no cosas afuera de tu control, no la clima, eso ya es diferente, pero cosas realmente en tu control, van a reclamar dinero con esa fianza. Si reclaman dinero contra esa fianza, tú vas a perder dinero y tú eres responsable. Recuerdan, si un proyecto grande te pide la fianza de cumplimiento, ¿ok? Tienes que terminar ese proyecto por los términos y condiciones que están en ese contrato. Todo lo que está en el contrato, permisos, planos, fechas, si te pidieron esto exactamente como estaba detallado en el contrato, eso es lo que tú vas a hacer. ¿Ok? Recuerdan en eso. Ahora, en el último párrafo en la página 10, ahí vamos a estar, dice, los nuevos contratistas, ¿ok? Los nuevos contratistas. Regularmente los nuevos contratistas tienen problemas aplicando y aprobando por estas fianzas. Pues, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué nuevos contratistas tienen problemas aplicando por estas fianzas? Los nuevos contratistas tienen problemas porque recuerdan, estas fianzas son para proyectos grandes de millones. ¿Cuáles fianzas son fianzas de proyectos? Porque como yo les dije, estas fianzas, pone que la fianza de cumplimiento, la fianza de pago, ¿ok? Fianza de contrato. Estas fianzas son por proyecto. Algunos proyectos te piden una, algunos proyectos te piden todas, algunos proyectos no te van a pedir ninguna. Depende en el proyecto. En el último párrafo en la página 10, ¿ok? En el último párrafo en la página 10, te dicen, esas fianzas regularmente te cuestan 1 a 2% del valor de ese contrato. Por ejemplo, si te piden una fianza de pago porque tú tienes un subcontratista y ese subcontratista te va a cobrar $80,000, ¿cuánto te cuesta la fianza? La fianza no te cuesta $80,000. La fianza te cuesta 1 a 2% de esos $80,000. Pero el último párrafo te dice, regularmente los contratistas no aprueban para estas fianzas porque no tienen mucha historia de trabajo, ¿ok? No tienen mucha historia de trabajo y quieren ver que tienes un poco de crédito, que son contratistas responsables y es por eso que quieren a contratistas con más tiempo de su compañía. Ahora, al principio pues no hay nada mal con eso, ¿verdad? Porque obviamente si apenas sacamos la licencia, apenas tenemos nuestra compañía, no tiene mucho sentido tratar de meterte en un proyecto de millones. Pero lo que sí debes de hacer es comenzar poco a poco a hacer tu crédito. Comenzar poco a poco a generar una reputación muy buena con tu compañía, ¿verdad? Y es lo que queremos hacer. Todo se hace poco a poco, no de un día a otro, ¿verdad? Ahora, de aquí sí vamos a llegar, ¿okay?, a la página 20. Ya terminamos las fianzas, repasamos todas las fianzas y vamos a terminar con la página 20 y vamos a hablar de las retenciones, ¿ok? Vamos a hablar de las retenciones. Claro, las fianzas, muy común, trabajos comerciales, trabajos públicos. Claro, eso es de seguro. Las fianzas son trabajos residenciales, trabajos públicos. Pues las más grandes, ¿no? Las más grandes. Regularmente en esos proyectos te piden estas fianzas. No son muy común en trabajo residencial, pero eso no significa que un proyecto grande no te lo puede pedir. Claro, te lo pueden pedir, pero no son comunes. Son más comunes en lo comercial y lo público. Ahora, en la página 20 donde dice las retenciones. Ahora, tenemos que asegurar que ustedes tienen en su libro, ¿ok?, para trabajo público y ahora también por lo residencial, lo máximo que te pueden retener es el 5% de tu retención. Lo máximo que te pueden retener en tus proyectos es el 5%. Permítame un momentito. Okay. Ahora, yo quiero que pongan y que marquen que es el 5%, ¿verdad? ¿Qué es una retención? Una retención es, en este caso, en este ejemplo, los últimos 5% de un contrato. ¿Qué están esperando para que te pueden dar ese último 5%? Están esperando que tu trabajo, el proyecto, pase inspección. En el momento que el trabajo pasa inspección, es cuando te dan el 5%, ya los últimos 5%. Ciertos contratos más grandes, comerciales, por ejemplo, también quieren la espera de la expiración del lien period. ¿Qué es la expiración del lien period? Pues si se recuerdan para atrás en el capítulo 3, a veces quieren que ya no tengas la oportunidad del mechanics lien. Es decir, algunas compañías te dicen te tienes que esperar hasta 90 días para que te podamos dar tu último pago. Si no saben, amigos, sí hay compañías que pagan, se llama net 30, 60, 90. ¿Ok? Regularmente sí son compañías más grandes, compañías comerciales, pero ellos pagan net 30, 60 o 90. ¿Qué significa? Tienen hasta 30 días después para pagarte, hasta 60 días o 90 días para pagarte después de la fecha que está en ese contrato. Ha tenido estudiantes, sacaron su licencia, se emocionan, un contrato comercial grande, a veces en los millones, a veces en los 250,000, 500,000, muy emocionados, firman el contrato y firman un contrato que no entienden qué significa net 30, net 60, net 90. Se basan a lo que dice el contrato y dicen, hey, pues, ¿por qué tienen hasta 30 días para pagarme? O 60, 90 días para pagarme. Yo no puedo sostener este proyecto esperando 90 días para mi pago. Pero estas compañías no te lo están escondiendo. Ellos mismos te dicen, nosotros pagamos net 30, 60 o 90, que significa, después de la fecha que están en el contrato, tenemos hasta 30 días para pagarte, 60 o 90. Mucho cuidado con los contratos que van a firmar, por favor. Mucho cuidado, porque si no lo entienden, no entienden una parte, tienen que tener cuidado, porque muchos a veces no pueden esperar 90 días por un pago. No, a veces no tenemos ese dinero suficiente en nuestra cuenta de banco para sostener esos proyectos. El último punto sobre esto es, revisa los documentos, revisa los contratos. Si tú no vas a dar tu propio contrato y ellos te van a dar el contrato, asegura todo lo que está en ese contrato. Si ese contrato son puras cláusulas que protege a la otra parte, tú también tienes el derecho para agregar más cláusulas en un amendment. Tú puedes hacer tu propio documento. Hey, me interesa mucho este proyecto, pero estas son cláusulas que yo quiero agregar. Recuerdan que es vas a negociar. No todo es para ellos. Tú tienes el poder de negociar. Si al final del día no te quiere dar nada de lo que tú quieres, a lo mejor ese proyecto no es para ustedes. Y a veces diciendo no es lo mejor que puedes hacer, ¿verdad? Es lo mejor, porque tampoco te quieres meter en un proyecto que te puede ir a bancarrota, ¿verdad? Ahora, así para acabar con la última pregunta aquí de este amigo, ¿cuáles capítulos son lo más importante? Pues siempre les he dicho, amigos, los capítulos más importantes son el capítulo 2, 4 y 5. ¿Ok? 2, 4 y 5. Esos son los 3 capítulos más importantes. Aquí mismo está 65% del examen, que es el porcentaje que requieres para pasar el examen. Ese es exactamente 65. Yo digo 65, pero es como de 62 a 65 más o menos, ¿verdad? Pero les digo esto, en el estado de seguro, 22 preguntas son del capítulo 2. En puros contratos están en 22 preguntas. Y las preguntas son del contrato de mejoras para el hogar, solicitud a vivienda y servicio y reparación. Y es por eso que les digo, tienen que saber todo lo que aplica a esos contratos. 22 preguntas de solamente esos contratos y el proceso de hacer un contrato. ¿Ok? Capítulo 4 y 5, esos son los tres capítulos más importantes. ¿Ok? Deben de estudiar estos capítulos lo más que ustedes puedan. Recuerdan que los exámenes, todo es por computadora. Todo es por computadora. Pregunta 4 opciones. ¿Ok? A, B, C o D. Lees la pregunta con calma, quitas 2, lee la pregunta una vez más y ahora sí hace tu decisión. ¿Ok? Voy a acabar este en vivo, amigos, con la información de el seminario que vamos a tener en San José. Seminario en San José es sábado 19 de septiembre. ¿Ok? Aquí vamos a repasar, pues obviamente, el cómo obtener tu licencia. Si ya tienes tu curso, no hay problema. También repasamos contratos de construcción, que eso es el segmento que muchos llegan, contratos de construcción. Tenemos un agente de marketing y también de seguros. Pero es un tiempo que ustedes pueden llegar, me pueden conocer, yo voy a estar allí, yo voy a estar presente. Vamos a dar diferentes segmentos. Este seminario es gratis, amigos, es gratis. Solamente me tienen que mandar un mensaje de texto con las palabras Seminario San José. Yo les mando el formulario para que se pueden registrar, ¿ok? Yo les mando el formulario para que se pueden registrar. Es sábado 19 de septiembre, ¿ok? Sábado 19 de septiembre. Vamos a repasar muchos diferentes segmentos, cómo obtener la licencia de contratista, contratos de construcción, marketing, seguros. Va a ser sábado 19 de septiembre. Solamente tienen que mandar un texto aquí, 909-835-9890. El número, una vez más, es 909-835-9890. Ahí está el número que pueden mandar texto. Luis, quiero ser parte del seminario en San José. Yo les mando el formulario. La fecha, 19 de septiembre, como dije, este seminario es totalmente gratis. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes, amigos. Sigue estudiando, síguele echando.